Okay, there we go. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:04 this evening. I'd like to welcome you all to our regular meeting, November 13th, 2018, of the Hsdsb School Board. And tonight we are very privileged to have our Education Week essay contest winners with us tonight. They'll be reading their essays. Also tonight we have Emma Johnston. She is our student liaison to Pinkerton. It's her first night here with us, and we welcome her, and we'll give her an opportunity to introduce herself a little later in the evening.
Kathleen Abrazizi.
Here.
Jason Cipriano.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell.
Here.
James Sweeney.
Here.
Karen Yasenka.
Here.
Emma Johnston.
Here.
And also seated at the board table is Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Roxanne Wilson.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next, approval of minutes. You'll see before you 3 sets from October 23rd, a regular, a non-public, and a workshop. You take a look at those, please, if you haven't already. And when you're ready, I will accept a motion to accept them.
So moved.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Additions, corrections? No? All right. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Melissa, do we have any public comments tonight?
We did not get any requests tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Administrative reports. Mr. Collins, welcome.
Good evening. Nice to see our new school board member, Emma. I've seen you for a few years, over the years. It's nice to see you here and see many of my former students and some current students here. So it's great to have all you guys here. Oh, and the parents. It's nice to have you too. The principal's report, I won't go through all of it, but I just want to really highlight Erin Pellegrini, wonderful lady. She's done a lot of great things within our PTSA. She was recognized at a state event. We'll be sending out a press release next week about that award. She's just an awesome lady. She's done some cool things for us. We received another significant donation from Katie Toscano. I think a few of the people in this room remember the story about Katie Toscano. She worked at our school for a few years, was on a path to become a teacher, went through a tragedy, and what she's been doing is giving back to the communities that helped her through her earlier life there. So she gave us another $10,000 donation, which means you have to follow your policy, which means we'll probably have to schedule a hearing, probably whenever you have your next board meeting. So I don't want to tell you what to do, but I think that's what we did the last couple of donations.
That'd be November 27th.
Sounds good. I'll be there. This means she's now given us $40,000. Of which we've used some of it already, and the board supplemented with the shade structure. And Tom and I are working on some bang-up jobs and doing some more stuff for the students, the children. So you'll see some more things happening out there. Congratulations and thanks to the many across the state that sent thousands on thousands of cards to the military. I had the joy of bringing quite a few hundred of Hsdsb cards, a couple of boxes, just to deliver them to the organizers. So it's wonderful. Thank you for everybody that contributed. The kids made them, a lot of people worked with them, and it was just a great experience. Some other things in the principal's report, I did want to highlight that we had a very, very active school last Friday. It was an interesting piece because with security at the building, I intentionally had the parents experience the security of the students as much as possible. So they knew they had to go through the front piece and then walk long distances for the back stairs. And every one of the parents said, this is awesome. I received lots of positive comments on the building being quite a bit safer. Great job on the parent conferences. A lot of parents stopped by to say, boy, that teacher really knows my kid. They didn't say they nailed it, but you know what I meant. I did want to mention that we ran into a glitch with the portable removal. I think it was shared with the board. But basically what happened is they were ready to move it on Monday, and the trailer hitch thing, they were having some problems with it, so they found that it had sort of sat underneath there and wasn't safe to move the portable, so they literally just, they're going to have to get a new one and come back to move the portables at another date. So they kind of stopped where they were, and they'll come back. It was fine. It's just a delay, is the way we look at it. It'll just mean it'll be another week or so. But the people that were doing this from Hsdsb went back to me, and they're working on a solution. It should be relatively soon. But everything else has gone along to get everything else done. Congratulations to all the people that did a lot of work. The church did a lot of work. If you've driven behind the church, you can see where the new food pantry is going to go. And of course, Tom pulled together a lot of contractors and stuff. So it's gone well. So we're looking forward to a little bit more playground for the children. But thank you.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Collins?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Denola, welcome.
Hi, Emma. It's so good to see you. Wow. Such a good person. I'm glad you're going to be here. So you get to see all of us doing our work here. Awesome. So good evening, everyone. Before I begin my report, I just wanted to update you on some of the recent changes and challenges we experienced rolling out our new student responsibility rubric. As you recall, when the homework policy was updated in September, homework was then to be reported only on the report card, but not in the academic grades. And at that time, we created a new rubric to reflect the students' progress on homework and to modernize our prior rubrics on participation and conduct. This was completed on October 25th. Grades ended on November 2nd. And in hindsight, this was rushed, and I didn't give it enough time for parents and students and teachers to fully know and understand the new expectations. For that, I apologize. I worked too fast to get it through, to be in compliance with our policy and our report cards coming to print. So I have removed those numerical grades of comments, of participation, conduct, and homework for this term, so we can get our arms around it and go slow to go fast. I'm going to have a parent forum on December 5th, just for them to take a look at it and give us some feedback, and to just make our antiquated rubrics more modern and reflect our 21st century skills and our strategic plan about students taking responsibility for their learning. Again, I apologize for moving it too quickly, but we will step back and look at it and have more input from people going forward. Do you have any questions about that?
I think I would just say I appreciate you taking a look at that. Sure. And doing it this way. I think my hope is that parents who may have some questions, who may have seen it and been confused, that this is a good opportunity, get the questions answered, and to your point, let's make sure that people understand what's going on here.
And you learn from doing, and I think that one thing I learned is in Power School, we're in real time. It's 24/7. So if there's any change in a comment or a grade, a numerical thing, you are seeing it in real time as it's happening. So there's no, when we were little, we would get a report card and it was like, oh, my report card. The report card is updated 24/7. So it's confusing, but we'll do better, I promise. Before I start my report, I really would like to introduce Mrs. Julie Barbick, our social worker, and she has been serving us for the past month, Julie, for the central school and the middle school, and she would like to just address the board and tell you a little bit about what her day looks like and the projects that she's working on with us. It feels like she's been with us forever. So I thank you. Julie.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you all for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be able to meet all of you, as well as meet some members of the community here. So thank you. I would also really like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support in the development of my position as the school social worker. It really is truly a privilege to be able to serve the school and the community in this role and to work with this wonderful team, amazing teachers, and really incredible administration. So I'm very proud to be here in front of you today. The past few weeks have been great. It has really been, like I said, it's been a privilege to be here. I'm proud to say that I think that I've really hit the ground running with some great initiatives. I've spent the past few weeks developing sort of a community resource bank and really connecting with some members of our community, including St. Anne's Food Pantry, as well as Hsdsb Hospital, and really building those connections because social work and school social work is really about community and connecting with people. So I think that we're off to a really great start, and I look forward to being part of the process as the school moves towards a system of care. So I look forward to being a part of it. So thank you for the opportunity. Also willing to answer any questions anybody has.
Go ahead.
Sure.
So I wonder if you could just take a second, because I think for some context, since you're
Sure.
new, the board we've talked about this with the administration for
Absolutely.
some time and saw the value in it. Can you just describe, just in general, some of the services that you provide to students and the families in our district? What are the
Sure.
types of things that you
Sure,
would work
absolutely.
on?
So as a school social worker, I'm able to work with both the children and their families. So right now I'm doing work with both the central school and the middle school, which is great because I'm in a unique position where I'll really get to see these kids grow up and really be a fixture in the lives of the children and the family as they move from the central school to the middle school and be a familiar face. So there's that continuity there. Working with the children, I'll be able to do really a variety of services for the children and their families, working with the kids one-on-one, facilitating groups, doing some community outreach and home visits. I've already done one home visit so far with one of our guidance counselors. So that home visit component is sort of unique to social work and also unique to that school-home connection. And the guidance department will also be supporting and some of the home visits with me, as well as our school resource officer. So we're really trying to build on that school-home connection. So this is a great opportunity to do that. And I'll also be doing a lot of collateral contact. So if there are students who are seeing outside mental health providers, or if there are students who are in groups or programs, I'll be able to collaborate with the professionals in their lives and work to have some continuity of care and collaboration across the board. I also hope to work with some of our teachers and some of our staff on trainings, if that comes up, and education on mental health and trauma, and talking about the impact of these experiences on children and their brain development and how this impacts learning, and what can we do as a school to support the emotional growth, the social health, and the overall well-being of the children, as well as their parents, because that is an important piece too. So those are some of the things that I would really hope to bring to the table, and hopefully much, much more.
Great, thank you.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
One of our goals has been, and we've talked about this for at least 2 years now.
Yep.
One of our goals for this board is to look at the whole development of the child.
Yep.
And feel that that's very important. And the piece that was missing was you.
Well, thank you.
Was that position. So I'm glad that that position's been filled now, and that we can move forward, with a whole team, looking at the needs of the whole child, not just in parts.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful, and the school has. I walked into the school with a team that's already so committed and so aware and so intelligent as far as the needs of the children and your perspective, and so you make my job very easy. But I really truly am happy to be here and proud to be part of this team that's so committed to this sort of social and emotional learning initiative. So it's wonderful, and very proud to be here.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. fall sports updates very quickly. I won't go through everything, but we had a parade of champions last week to celebrate our fall athletes. Our girls field hockey team won first place. The boys soccer came in second. Girls soccer team made it to playoffs, and our cross-country team had many teams excel into the top 10 places. On this week, on Friday, our band will be traveling to UNH for the band extravaganza. They will be in the audience to see live performances of the UNH marching band and wind ensemble. Part of this is to allow students to dream about what's going to look like when I go to college. Can I have my music follow me into a university setting? And on top of that, we have, on Thursday, we had a very special opportunity where Mr. Nick Arroyo, our PE teacher, has a connection at Boston College. And this is their third year of having an annual field day. Emma, you would have loved this. And it is it's a field day just for middle school students. And it's for, it's Boston College against Holy Cross. And it talks about goal setting. There's a program involved where the kids will then get to speak to some of the student athletes with their coaches about what it is to aspire to go to a Division I school, the hard work that it takes and the practice, the sacrifices on behalf of themselves and their parents. So we're very happy. There's going to be, I think they said somewhere about 1,500 to 2,000 students involved in this experience at no cost, except for the buses. So it's quite nominal. Some of you saw in the paper about our 7th grade STEAM challenge. The Unified Arts teachers put together a whole STEAM challenge for the 7th graders. Gianna, you had fun with that as well. And not only was it fun, but they really focused on, using science, technology, the arts, graphic arts, engineering, manufacturing, marketing. They reached out to local businesses to work together on these food trucks. And it was quite funny. Dr. Metzler came in to see the food trucks, and he was really expecting to see food trucks parked in the cafeteria. And he's like, where are they? And I'm like, no, they're wooden cutouts. And Mr. Remillard cut them all out with the kids, and they were massive. And then they had little serving platforms where the kids were there and different recipes, and it went over very well. The parents loved it. Grampy and Grammys, aunts came, and so this is more of our STEAM projects of integration, and I thank the UA teachers for their vision on this. District safety, just an update. I gave Mrs. Parnell, I put a stack of the minutes for the District Safety Committee, minutes for your distribution at your leisure. And voting day, I just want to tell you that November 6th went very well, and I thank you very much for proposing to have more help from the Hsd PD, and that made all the difference in the world. We had our SRO that was there all day long, so he was able to manage traffic in and out, and it gets a little tricky because of the buses, and the buses come in front of the building. That's where our handicap spots are, which is, there's only a few, and for our needs, they're adequate. But for something of this magnitude, there really weren't enough handicap spaces. However, my recommendation, my humble recommendation, is that the town would have perhaps some movable handicapped parking spaces that the highway department could put in place near the gym, and I think that would allow our handicapped voters to have more access to the building. So there was a lot of pedestrian traffic, and I know that Detective Conway blocked those spaces off because of the pedestrian traffic, and I know you heard it at Windham, someone got run over in that instance of the pedestrian traffic. So he foresaw something that could be a dangerous situation, took it into his own hands. So it was a rainy day, which was blessed for us, so I didn't have to disappoint the kids for not going outside, so they stayed in, and we did very well. So I have a better report this time. And we had police at the end of School Street, we had them in the gym, and we also had Officer Conway directing traffic instead of me. So, thank you, that went very well.
Thank you to
yeah.
the Hampstead Police Department. for that
Yes,
system.
And Chief came up to check on things as well, so.
Yeah, when I was there, just voting, everything seemed to be running smoothly. I had a conversation with Officer Conway, and much improved over the last
Thank
voting
you.
day that we had.
Thank you. We had professionals running that. Yes, thank you.
Makes a difference, huh?
We have a new program at the school. It's robotics-coders. And these kids are coming together on Wednesday mornings at 7:30 a.m. with Mr. Remillard, and they're exploring coding. It's called Buteo. You know more about this, Mr. Cipriano, than I do. I don't even know what that means. But the kids are doing challenges and learning and utilizing skills with complex problems. They're following bots, sensor bots, and humanoid robots. They're way up here and doing that early in the morning. So congratulations, Mr. Remillard, for giving our kids another opportunity to flex their robotic muscles. Library happenings, we've had a lot of book tastings, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and that's a situation where the librarians gather all kinds of books from all different genres and talk about all the specific books that are available. We have a rich collection at Hsdsb, and the kids consider maybe reaching out of a genre that they usually would read into something different. And we've had just hundreds and hundreds of books checked out because of this. So that's a good encouragement, and our library media specialist, Mrs. Connors, works tirelessly to put this together. It takes a lot of work. So I'd like to just tell you that on Thursday, Mrs. Joseph and I will be traveling up north to Waterville Valley for an evening presentation for our own Kate Muskrat as she receives Health Educator of the Year. So that is Thursday. The Hsdsb VFW has awarded Mr. Kevin Fisher as the VFW Teacher of the Year for all of his work for the community and celebrating music and our veterans. Our Veterans Day Assembly was just spectacular, and you'll see that up on the television in the next couple of days. We had Commander Gassaway, and I put his speech in front of you. I had asked him to speak for 10 minutes because I have 5, 6, 7, and 8th graders. He spoke for almost 45 minutes, not a pin dropped. The kids were mesmerized, they were engaged. There wasn't a dry eye in the place, but it was about goals, working hard, the sacrifices you make for others, and it was just so rich. So I hope you enjoy it on the TV and even on the written page. I thought you'd enjoy that. And a lot of the veterans asked afterwards, could I have a copy of his speech? So we've distributed it to the veterans. It was a beautiful event. Parent-teacher conferences went very well. We we expanded it to 10 minutes. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but before we only had 5 minutes. They were very well attended. Teachers stayed well after those allotted times to communicate with parents. ABC, tomorrow starts our ABC Bullying Prevention Week, and we have some great activities to get the message out about kindness and compassion, which I believe our SAS will share with you as well. And that's not everything, but that's the highlights that's going on at the middle school. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. And next we have Emma Johnston. Would you like to spend a minute or two just telling us about yourself?
Yeah. So
Great.
first off, I'd just like to thank you for having me as your student liaison. And so just a little bit about myself. I'm a sophomore at Pinkerton Academy. I'm on student council, and I play field hockey as well. I'm also on the Just Like Us club, and I'm an AMP leader, which basically I go around to the freshman seminar classes, which is half of their lunch, and I just teach them about what's going on at Pinkerton, different ways to prevent bullying and stuff like that. Good for freshmen coming into Pinkerton, so that way we can introduce them and not just throw them right into all the craziness of all the people. So yeah, that's about it. And so just to get into my report about what's going on at Pinkerton, the first quarter came to a close on October 31st, and Pinkerton saw many different accomplishments from all the different Hsdsb students there. From championships to musicals, their accomplishments are many and impressive. On December 7th through the 9th, Pinkerton Players is putting on Little Women, and one of the lead roles is Laurie, and that's Michael Hughes. He's from Hampstead. I'm very excited to see their hard work on the stage. Some sports have also won championships. Cheer and girls cross country took home the title, with cheer led by Captain J.C. Harlow from Hampstead. And this Saturday, varsity football is playing against Bedford High School at UNH for the championship game. And I got to witness another great accomplishment from a Pinkerton student. I recently attended a conference for student council, which was a great experience, and that was up in Waterville Valley, and that's held by the Executive Council of New Hampshire. And the president of that is Tatum Metzler from Hampstead, and she did a great job running it all. And another exciting event that I took part of was the Spain Exchange Program, which was an amazing experience. I had 2 students from Bilbao, Spain, come and stay in my house, and they got to go to the Mac Black Dance, which was successfully put on by Student Council, and they got to go to the famous Londonderry versus Pinkerton football game. And overall, it was a great experience, and they had a great time, and we were all crying at the end of it when they were leaving because we just made such a great bond. And I'm very fortunate to be able to go there next June, and I'm so excited to go to just learn about that culture. And finally, after much deliberation, Dr. Timothy Powers was selected to be Pinkerton's next headmaster, and I think that's a very wise decision because Dr. Powers has helped Pinkerton as the interim headmaster. He's helped Pinkerton through many ups and downs, such as when the pep rally was canceled due to some activities that we don't know about.
Great, thank you very much. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate you being here, and look forward to your reports at our next meetings. Thank you, Emma.
No problem.
Okay, next. Essay contest winners. Would you like to introduce them, Dr. Wilson?
Every year, we recognize Education Week in November by having an essay contest. And we have a prompt that students write to in 2nd grade, 5th grade, and 7th grade. And all of the writers go through the school, and the top 3 come to the central office, and we score them based, we don't know their names, we just score them the best writing essay that we found. And then the winner is revealed, and thus we have 3 speakers with us here today. So we're going to start with 2nd grade, and Dillard will introduce Ryan.
We have many wonderful 2nd graders. It's a pleasure to introduce Ryan Lalive, who is going to step over to this table. It's a little bit more his height, and he's going to share with you the essay that he wrote in his classroom with Mrs. Prue. So come on, buddy, you ready?
Welcome, Ryan. I'm very glad you could be here tonight.
To make a classmate feel welcomed, I would show them around the school. I would ask them if they want to play with me. I can also be kind and respectful to them, and I would invite them to my house. And finally, I could play soccer. If they don't like soccer, I would still play with them. Helping a friend makes me feel happy and super, super happy. I want to be a good friend, and I want to fill a bucket.
Ryan, I think anyone who meets you would be very happy to have you as a friend. You did a great job.
And Ryan, I want to show you, this is a certificate. Do you recognize that person? A certificate that says this is what you did. First place in grade 2, awarded to you for writing your wonderful essay. And we thank you for doing that. And you also have a little gift in here, which you can open up and be surprised. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan. I mean, for you.
It's anti-bullying week. Melissa, come on. We're just joking. This is Melissa Steer. She is a 5th grader, and I'm still taller than you a little bit, right? You're going to share your words, especially during this week of ABC and anti-bullying and prevention. Her words of caring and compassion are absolutely well put, right? I'm right here, okay?
People come from different countries, families, and different culture. That is why we are all different. No two people in this world are the same, not even identical twins. You might have a lot in common, but nobody is the same. It is important to accept people for who they are. It is important because nobody is perfect. You might think you are better than other people, but you aren't. Most people put on smiling faces when they walk down the school hallways. As soon as you judge them or say something mean, that will change. Bringing other people down shouldn't make you feel better. It is wrong, and people go home really upset because of it. Most of the time when people bully, they are jealous or upset, but it still doesn't give them the right to bring people down. It is important to accept people for who they are because you will be able to make friends who will help you through your situation. My advice that I would give to help my classmates promote an inclusive school is to be kind to all people. If you see someone walking in the hallway, shoot them a smile. It will make them happy and they might even do it to someone else. My other advice is to try to be friends with everyone. If you do this, we won't have much bullying and we will all be happy going to school. I hope that we can all accept people for who they are. If we all accept people for who they are, we will have a great school year. They don't have to be as good as you at things. They are not you, so you are not better than them. They are unique in their own ways. You probably aren't good at some of the things they are good at. If you accept them for who they will accept you for who you are, and you might even become friends.
Thank you, Melissa. Before you get your award, I just want to say that I think the message in your essay, your message of kindness and acceptance and inclusiveness, is certainly a message that everyone needs to hear. So thank you very much for bringing that to us tonight.
Thank you.
And Melissa, here's your certificate. And a little something from us to say thank you, and you deserve it.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you Gianna Rosa, our 7th grader, who did a wonderful job on her inclusiveness essay. So good luck. You don't need me right behind you, right? Just get a little bit closer so you can hear. Good job. Break a leg.
What role do students play in having an inclusive and positive school environment? Students have a leading role in creating inclusive and positive energy in school. There are many opportunities that students have during school to bring a positive feeling to the air. These things are clubs, helping those in need, sports, and days that we dedicate to include people. One way that students show an inclusive role is by participating in sports. Sports is a great way to include people and make new friends. When a student is on a team, there are many different people from different grades working together with one another. Over the course of the season, lasting relations are created with teammates. Another student-run event that includes people is an event called Mix It Up Day. This is a student-organized day in which at lunch, students will get a colored sticker and be assigned to a different colored table. There may be people that students don't talk to normally at these tables. This is a way to include people because some of the people they sit with may not have someone to sit with on the average day. From my perspective, playing sports with different grades improved my experience. These relationships that I made the first year on the team have stayed with me. I've met kids who were younger than me and some who were older. But on the court or field, it didn't matter your age. All that mattered was that you were one and a team. Every year, my school hosts a National Mix It Up Day. These dedicated days have helped lots of students that I never said a word to before. To this day, I am still friends with these fellow students and have become friends and positively have affected me. Another way that students show a role in spreading positivity is by showing kindness every day by actions and words. There is bullying in every school, and in every school there are upstanders and bystanders. A way that students stop the chain of bullying is by organizing a club called ABC. ABC stands for Anti-Bullying Committee. This club spreads positivity amongst the lives of students. It teaches you to be an upstander and to stand up to bullies and for who people may not be able to stand up for themselves. In conclusion, students do play a role in making school positive and inclusive. In fact, students have everything to do with it, and playing a leading role in making school a better place. Clubs and devoting days are just two small things that students do to make school a more welcoming environment. There are still some problems with bullying. However, this worldwide problem has been shrinking due to students leading a positive role in school.
Gianna, here's your certificate. Thank you very much for writing such wise words. And here's your gift here. And all three of you are excellent speakers.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all 3 essay contest winners. You did a great job. Thank you for bringing your message to us here this day, which is National Kindness Day. How appropriate that all your essays had something to do with kindness and inclusiveness. And also to the parents of the essay winners. It's because of you, obviously, that you've shaped your children and instilled in them the values that they shared with us tonight in their essays. So thank you very much.
And you should feel no need to stay.
No, you can still go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Okay, next up, Mrs. Denola and Mrs. Wolf, your proposal for the Washington. Oh, she's
Mrs. Wolf is unable to be here this evening. Something came up, so I'm going to replace her and ask your permission to approve another 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., June 4th through June 7th. Anytime we go out of town 300 miles more or stay overnight, we need to ask permission to the school board for their support of this trip. Last year, we had a very successful trip. The year before, we had a very successful trip. This year, they will be doing pretty much the same itinerary of the Lincoln Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, Korean and World War II Memorial. They'll be touring the Capitol, going to the Smithsonian, and then we have a new African American museum that we are planning to go to. They'll go to Fort Hunt, Mount Vernon, tour Washington's homestead, go to Arlington National Cemetery, and Mrs. Wolf has done this so many times before, and she has taken the lead once again, and we do support this opportunity for our children for this coming year. This is a wonderful 8th grade class. They have worked very hard, and I know they'll do us proud.
great. I don't think we have any objections or questions. My only question is, I think I know the answer. I just want to make sure that arrangements are made for any child, that cost may be a factor, that no child will be excluded because of cost.
Absolutely. And we have an angel fund, and the generosity of our town has made sure that every child has a voice in this trip.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion the board approve the request for 8th grade class trip to Washington, D.C.
Second.
Yay.
Any further discussion?
I just have a comment, really. I think the visit to the Supreme Court is new.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's exciting. Cool. All right, that's
It's a
all.
great trip. I've
Yeah.
been happy to support it for years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
All in favor?
Oh,
It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Now, our budget discussion. Mr. Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Jeff Dowd. I'm the District CFO, Business Administrator, here to talk a little bit about where we are on the budget. But first, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Emma Johnston. I've known her for quite a while, and very articulate, just a great shining example of what our Hempstead students can be, radiates positivity. After you were done speaking, I don't know if you noticed, but everyone on the board seemed to be smiling. So which is good, because they're not going to be smiling. I'm talking about the budget.
You're going to ruin that now, right? With all
Thank
the
you for
budget?
warming them up a little bit
Okay.
anyway. So.
Meeting's been good so far. Let's not ruin it, Jeff.
Well, I won't ruin it. I won't talk about our budget being out. I'll talk about everything else. So, no. If you look at the packet that I have for you, you'll see a copy of the proposed budget summary. And on the next page, you'll see a one-page summary of the proposed budget compared to prior year budgets, the difference compared to prior year budgets prior to that with expenditures. Next page is a description of facilities projects, and the final page, it's a 3-page packet, is a more comprehensive view on the object budget. So I try to get everything onto a one-page summary every year to make it a little bit easier. So our budget in the current year is $26,860,997,000. Our proposed budget is $28,944,694. This is a change of $2,083,697, which is a 7.7% increase. So a couple of the drivers that we have, you'll see on your summary sheet. We have an increase in salaries to the tune of about $732,000 or $733,000. That includes, which we can discuss, that includes a number of position requests that have been included in the budget as proposed in the draft 1 of the budget that you have in front of you. We have $585,000 increase in repair and maintenance, which we can discuss as well, and you have a little bit more detail on what that is, and what a lot of that represents. We have an increase of $407,000 in tuitions, which is that 560 object code. That has a lot to do with Pinkerton with our enrollments. And our insurance is up $300,000, teacher retirement $109,000. On those two issues, the group insurance, that is based on the guaranteed maximum rate provided by our insurance carrier, which Health Trust, which is at 6.5%. Teacher retirement, those rates are in. The rates have gone up a bit, and it's not a huge change in the percent, but it's a big change in the percentage. So it's about 10% increase. That's a rate that's good for this year and the following year. You can see that we have an increase due to bringing on our budgeting for our SRO and security, it's professional services, and the rest is not really a huge change anywhere. You'll notice at the bottom we have equipment reduction of $56,000 just based on the needs of the district, as well as book and info resources, which is that 640 line, and that's a difference of $96,000, largely due to our science curriculum being put in place. So I'm happy to discuss any of the areas that you'd like to discuss, or get some guidance from you as to what you'd like to see in perhaps the next draft of the budget.
Okay, so first, of the major factors, what do we have any discretion over? What can't we touch? I mean, what's going to go up whether we like it or not?
Well, I have a section at the bottom, you should say little discretion at the bottom.
Little discretion?
With an asterisk, so anything we have little discretion over. However, on the salaries line, that includes a number of positions that have been requested and changes in hours to existing positions. So while that's one line that we typically don't have a lot of discretion over, we do have some additions that include library media specialist, and a math specialist for central school, and we have a social worker, which was not in last year's budget, which I've included in the current year budget, and the inclusion of a data specialist, which you can hear a little bit more on, which is a request from our information technology department. So when I say we don't have a lot of discretion in that line, typically we don't. We do have a number of new positions in there that have been requested. I've put in to see how it looks. So we do have some room in that line. Repair and maintenance, we do have discretion over. Tuitions, group insurance, teacher retirement, we really don't. As far as any of the others, it would be an impactful area. We don't have much impact on, much discretion on social security on our FICA or transportation. Those are mandated, and we have retirement, insurance, social security, all drivers of, all factors of what our employment is, what our personnel.
Well, I'm going to, I'll open this up to the board and see what direction they'd like to go in. I can give you my take on this. The 7.5% is very high. Last year, I think the total budget was 3.5 when it was all said and done.
Yeah.
The board's free to ask any questions they want of anyone. I don't want to get into, personally, don't want to get into the game of saying, you know, calling the shots at this point and saying, you know, cut this, keep this, cut this request, keep this request. I think it's still early on in the game that I think that we should give a general direction to the administration. You know, whatever that number is, if it's the 3.5% from last year or whatever, and send it back to the administration and say, you prioritize this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, cut in areas that will least impact the education of the children directly. And bring it back to us, you know, at the next meeting. Like I said, I personally don't want to sit here and go through every single request from an administrator and say, justify it, do you want it, do you need it? I don't think that's our role. But it's up to the board. If anyone on the board has specific questions, now's the time to ask them. Jason?
Jeff, under teacher retirement, that's the New Hampshire, is that the New Hampshire retirement system?
That is, yep.
So this is one of the things that we've been talking about over the last, well, pretty much since I've been on the board, is an area of downshifting costs where the New Hampshire retirement system funding from the state levels has continually decreased essentially to zero and has been pushed down on local municipalities. It's something that we have highlighted for years as a real issue for us because when the retirement system was originally constituted, the state contribution was significant. I don't remember the number now. I have to look at my presentation, but it was significant. I thought it was. I don't want to throw out a number because I'll get fact checked, but I know it was pretty significant. And now it's essentially zero. So the cost has been downshifted to us. The thing too, and I brought this up at the budget workshop, is the repair and maintenance line is one of the most significant cost increases this year. And this is really a function of we have deferred maintenance for a number of years on a number of projects because we had the Article 2, because we had other things, and we were trying to keep the budget in check, and we were trying to deliver a budget that was, you know, at or near the rate of inflation, not too far off from it, and taking into account new collective bargaining agreements and so forth. And my concern here is that we're starting to reap what we sowed in deferring those maintenance because we're getting to the point where we risk catastrophic failure for equipment. We've seen it with some equipment already. And there's only so many times, you know, we had this discussion because a big chunk of this is the resurfacing of the, repaving of the parking lot and the driveway at the middle school. And I almost said resurfacing because it's the original pavement. It's been resurfaced to the point where, you know, we're being told it really can't be resurfaced anymore. It's got so many layers on top of layers on top of other layers. So that's, I agree with you, Karen. I think, you know, on its face that this is it's a number, it's a percentage increase that I think people, the voters are just going to find unacceptable. So I think we've got to get down to a more acceptable number. I think we've got some challenges here, and I've identified two of them. So.
Any other comments?
Just want to add, just in terms of process, we felt it important that you hear some of the things that we are in need of, which is why they are in the budget, knowing full well that this was going to be just the first draft. There will be some things that we're going to have to look at because none of us knew what the percentage was until we actually laid in the district budget pieces. And as you can see, it's gone a lot higher than any of us are comfortable with. But we're still trying to fit the minimum standards of, you know, having a librarian at each school. We're looking at, what the difference is in terms of some of the support services for a math specialist at the elementary school. We're trying to adjust some of the special ed positions. So we really felt that we needed to at least try to address some of the personnel things as well. But through the conversation, some of them might be backed off for another year. And certainly the facilities, which is why Tom is here, the facilities priorities are a major piece of this. But if we're going to have to cut, $800,000, we're going to have to go to facilities for some of that. So it will be a prioritizing.
I've provided a list of those facilities projects, if it would be useful to get a feeling from the board if there is a preference or general direction on those major projects.
I personally, and this has been something that we've been talking about a lot because of issues that popped up at the beginning of the year. As far as prioritizing, I feel like the issues with the HVAC and the ventilation at middle school have to take a high priority because, as Karen mentioned, anything that affects the learning environment, the students, the staff, I think this is something that directly speaks to that. We know it's a big piece. There are certainly bigger projects, but I would like to have that seen as a priority, at least on my own list.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that affects the health of our employees and our students, and we need to make sure that we have the appropriate systems in there, and it's.
So you're specifically relating to the classroom flooring upgrades, the design ventilation, the existing conditions upgrades design?
Yes, those.
Yeah, those are all
those
connected.
three, yep.
The acoustical tiles, I'm not quite sure. That's only $24,000, but
Yeah.
still, I'm not quite sure where that ranks in terms of priority. But those three main items are the ones that you're concerned with.
That would be my
From
top.
what I understood with the ceiling tile upgrades at the middle school was that because of the age on them and the sagging, I mean, it's because of dust particles and dust mites and mildew and what have you that's in those that's deteriorating the ceiling tiles. So I think that would be part of the upgrade that would be necessary to improve the learning and working environment.
The reality is that from a cost standpoint, I mean, all of those things still don't add up to the repaving.
Right.
I mean, that's.
Tom wants to say something.
I mean, is it possible that the repaving, I think you've discussed this before, could be done in phases rather than, the large number all at once, do sections and do a phase year after year, to break it up a little bit?
Yeah, I want to speak to that if you'd like. We've broken such paving projects up over a number of years, and it's lessened the impact and kept the projects on track. If you wouldn't mind as well, just touching upon the impact of the acoustical ceiling tiles, whether it's cosmetic or help address some of the issues that we have at the middle school right now.
Sure. If you look at most of the classrooms at the middle school, the ceilings are showing their age. Right? So on top of just providing acoustics, you're also talking about your fire barrier, right? So when we have wavy ceiling tiles, you're not keeping that consistent layer on the ceiling. And the reason why we would build that with the flooring is we would try to chip away and do one classroom at a time, and that was the approach, was creating better environments one classroom at a time at the school. So even that, we can work with the phasing of that, but I would say that if we're going to do flooring, we should do the ceilings at the same time, fresh coat of paint, and just hit classroom by classroom at the middle school over a period of time. And as far as the paving goes, as Mr. Dowd said, that could be broken up into a phased approach as well. Of course, on the economies of scale, you get a better deal if you do it all at once. However, of course, it's a big number to look at, right? So we could look at phasing that into it too. So it wasn't just paving the parking lot. It was, I think, as I alluded to in the budget workshop, it was also providing a safe area for the kids to have recess. So we're not having intersecting cars with the kids out at recess. So.
Just a quick question in terms of, if we put the paving out as a separate warrant article, we still have to lay it into the budget, correct? Similar to what we did with the roof?
Would you be speaking to a capital reserve item? It would go in to the budget through that capital reserve, through the approval of that warrant.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to necessarily, you wouldn't have to take it or lay the number into your budget now. It would come in after.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And when I consolidate the budget, if a capital reserve warrant article passes and we're contributing to it, that number gets factored into the budget, into the final voted budget, if you will. And that'd be the same with any capital reserve withdrawal. We would go ahead and include that once that's approved with the offsetting revenue.
Okay.
Guess my other question is, we had talked about the 60s wing. In the event that the Article 2 does not pass, the same as there are issues in middle school, there are issues in central school in that 60s wing, really, about the lack of insulation. I don't see that here. Am I supposed to?
Well, we haven't included anything in the operating budget for that, for the simple fact that we just can't figure out a way that we're not going to be, if Article 2 passes and the operating budget passes, we're going to end up with funding for one project twice. And the funding under the bond would be different than the funding, the expense, the cost structure would be different than it would be under the operating budget. So I'm not really sure how to address it. I think that's a big priority need. I also think that it's one of our, in terms of learning environments, it certainly is a significant learning environment issue, quality issue, but it's also an area that we really would get a very, very big return on the investment from a financial perspective as well. So while Article 2 is out there, I'm real dubious to figure out a way to get that, to budget for that and to budget for it in Article 2.
We had talked before about having a number for the 60s wing and putting it in as a separate standalone warrant article. I guess. It had been discussed.
Yeah, we had talked about doing a separate, possibly a separate warrant article for
Right, not a bond.
capital reserve fund.
Yes, it was a capital
Deposit.
reserve.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, because the capital reserve, if I remember correctly, we have about 600,000 in there right now. I don't know if that's the right number.
That's the number.
637, I think.
637,000 in capital reserve currently.
Oh,
and
no,
we
that's what
have-
it was, and we took 2 out, so it's like 437, I think, Jeff.
But then we think we put another 125 back in. All right, let's just say we have $500,000 in capital reserve, roughly. And it's not really enough to cover the future list of capital reserve projects. And so we were trying to figure out a way to get a substantial amount of money into the capital reserve project to take care of some of these things should Article 2 not pass. But the only way to take the money out of the capital reserve fund is to put it on a warrant article anyhow. So,
So your capital reserve is more than a neighborhood of about 750,000?
Oh, it is, okay.
Contribution made this year.
all right.
And I think that the good thing about exploring a separate warrant article is that you can carve out that amount and say, if this capital reserve request passes and Article 2 passes, then the capital reserve contribution or piece of that
Right, would be no,
would be null.
right.
So, but when you have it in the operating budget, you don't have the ability to pull it out the same way.
Right.
So really, the only way that you can do it is either through a warrant article drawing from capital reserve or a warrant article simply asking for it out of taxpayer appropriations.
Right.
And then that way there you can have a contingency.
I think the capital reserve is probably the way to go, and then you just put it before the taxpayers, you put it before the voters. And if there's, sorry, go ahead.
No, finish.
I was going to say, and then if, and then, I think we do the best that we can to communicate the need for some of this stuff. Like I said, the deferred maintenance is a big concern to me now because like this it doesn't go away and it only gets worse. And my concern is on some of these things that that we may have catastrophic failures, and it's not going to be a choice. And we all know those things happen at the worst possible times, coldest day of the year, that you're like in the middle of the school day or whatever, that you're like, that's when those kind of things happen. And then we're scrambling to try to figure it out. And so I just have some concerns. And then obviously this one about insulating the wing, I mean, we know, and we've talked about for years, because it relates to Article 2, is that we're just bleeding money in the form of our heating costs, because that the wing is not insulated effectively.
Well, and we're going to have the reverse in the winter. In the summer, it was so hot, some rooms were reaching 94 degrees, that the
Right.
staff and administration had to make arrangements to move the kids out of those rooms for a portion of the day. Whenever there was a free space someplace else for UA, they were moving the kids out. So we're going to have to do that this winter, too? It's cold in there. The kids can't just sit in there all day long if it's cold. I mean, I guess they can sit with their boots and their hat and their coats on, but that's not how you learn. So we have to come up with something.
And so much is the effect of heat loss and gain in that section of the building that we'd really need to take an approach of looking at insulating and putting a skin on the building, perhaps even insulating inside, and then working on HVAC as well, because if we were to address HVAC now, we would not get the proper load. And when we insulate, we'd have too much, we'd have a heating system that's grossly ineffective because it's oversized. And so we almost have to do it as not a single project, but at once, to try and get the best solution for that building, for that section.
That was kind of what I was going to add to yours is, we can't just insulate and not replace the windows. We
Right.
can't just put in a new HVAC system and then not insulate, because it's pointless, really, because we're just going to throw that great efficient heat is now flowing out of the walls and the doors. So when we talk about either capital reserve or something, I mean, I think we were talking, if I recall from what Mr. Geary told us previously, we were almost at about $1 million. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even if we did capital reserve, we don't have enough in there right now. And if we took all of that, then what if we had to have a catastrophic failure somewhere else?
Yeah.
That's my concern there. Now, I do understand that asking the taxpayers for an additional $1 million anywhere is not going to be hugely palatable, but I think, to reiterate what Jason said, the message has to be we've put things off, and we are now at the point that we have to do something, and that sometimes hurts to have to do something, but
Well, and
it has to be done.
And the
We're out of
bottom line
options.
here is the real messaging to taxpayers needs to be, we are just throwing money, literally, out the window. The message has to be that Article 2 needs to pass this year to take care of all these things, or we're going to do it piecemeal, and it's going to end up not being as cost-effective as if we would just pass Article 2 and get it done. It's like, was it penny wise and pound foolish? It's like, come on, taxpayers, get on board. We're all taxpayers here. I don't want to see my money being spent piecemeal and still not correcting a problem. The real issue is we have to pass Article 2. So that's the messaging that needs to come from the board out to the community. We can try all these creative things, but it's a waste of our money. I mean, that seems to be something that they understand. You're wasting your money by doing this. Pass the building, it's cost effective, and it'll be taken care of. So, and I don't know what else to say. There's no other way to spin it. We need to pass it, or we're wasting taxpayer money. So,
And this alone is a big project. This alone is a big project because it's so far behind in terms of where things are now and what the expectations are in energy efficiency and quality learning environments. So it just goes to show how much of an impact that alone is, Hsdsb.
okay, so what would the board like to do to direct the administration? Is to bring it down into a range of that 3.5?
Yeah, see what you can do about bringing down the overall percentage increase of the budget, and would it be our next meeting that we would be able to make decisions on warrant articles? What is the timeline on that? Can we get a couple of drafts up and?
Well, we have the meeting on the 27th,
Right.
and then we have our meeting on December 11th.
All right.
December 11th is when we usually finalize the budget.
Okay. So then December 11th would be when we would be deciding on what the other warrant articles would be?
You can have some discussion on the 27th.
Okay.
You can, make some decisions on, what the other warrant articles, because that's always the last thing that we do.
What is the timeline? Usually we have a schedule for when we're not nearing any deadlines yet.
Deadlines, no, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good. It's actually, the deadlines are in January. That's when you have to post your warrant. That's when you have to have all of that information done.
All right, as far as getting the ball rolling on finding out about interest rates for Article 2, and have we even talked about the length of life for the bond, like 20 years? I think was what we did last year. 20. I mean, have we
Yeah.
started the ball on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, I think
Okay.
as far as the budget goes.
Administrators?
All right,
Dr.
so I
Wilson, got your,
I
Directive?
heard you say 3.5?
in that range, yeah?
Okay. Let us see. I mean, there's definitely going to be some facilities that we're going to have to take away. That's a lot of money. And
I'd
again,
also-
trying not to,
I'd also suggest you
Yeah.
look at some of the new personnel.
I got my list right here.
Okay.
So we're ready to have those conversations.
Thank you. Direction is very helpful, so thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mrs. Bucco and FLES introduction. You'll remember at our workshop, we talked about FLES, foreign language in elementary schools. We put it in as one of our goals to study the development of it. So, Mrs. Bucco, you're here to tell us how that's going and where we are at this point.
So I'm here tonight to present information as to what a foreign language program in elementary school could look like, otherwise known as FLES. And as you mentioned, you have your school board goal this year to support the development of a FLES curriculum. And hopefully the information I present to you tonight will assist you in determining whether you want to include a FLES program in the budget for next year. So what is FLES? It's a elementary school model that is focusing on developing basic communication skills of a foreign language, and basic communication would be your listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and also to build a cultural knowledge so students would understand and appreciate other cultures. And the FLES instruction would enhance the content of the elementary school's curriculum. So for example, in a kindergarten classroom, if students are learning to count to 10 in their math class, in a FLES class, they would learn a recognition of numbers and learn how to count to 10 in Spanish. Or in a kindergarten classroom, if students are learning the months of the year, letters of the alphabet, their vowel sounds, well, in the FLES classroom, the students would be learning those skills in Spanish. And another example, in a science classroom, if students are learning about weather conditions, in the FLES classroom, the students would be learning that terminology in Spanish. So FLES is not a push-in program. The teacher would be in the classroom during the FLES instruction. The classroom teacher is not expected to become proficient in Spanish, but certainly the FLES teacher would provide the teachers with lists of vocabulary words that the students are learning in their FLES program in math, language arts, etc. So the classroom teacher could support the development of that vocabulary as well in Spanish. Likewise, a classroom teacher might ask the FLES teacher to reinforce in Spanish a particular concept, such as in kindergarten, students are learning direction words, up, down, left, right, forward, backward. So in the Spanish classroom, the Spanish teacher, in the FLES program, the Spanish teacher could reinforce that terminology as well in Spanish. So I did look at some research as to the benefits of a FLES program. And what I found was children participating in a FLES program develop their cognitive skills, which improves their reading and math skills. A FLES program has a positive impact on memory skills, creativity, problem-solving skills, And it may be easier for our elementary students to develop positive cross-cultural attitudes because they're more receptive to learning about other cultures at a younger age. Other benefits that I found, it's easier to learn another language at a younger age, and certainly children participating in the FLES program may eventually have a higher level of foreign language proficiency in high school and in college, which definitely would increase career opportunities. So what could a FLES program look like in an elementary school? This would entail about 30 minutes of instruction by the FLES teacher 3 times a week, and this would be by a certified teacher. And a FLES program could begin in kindergarten or first grade, then expand yearly to an additional grade level. And the FLES curriculum would definitely support our curriculum, plus be aligned with the national standards for foreign language, otherwise known as the 5 C's: communities, communication, cultures, connections, and comparison. And connections would be connections with Spanish to other subject areas in comparison of different languages and different cultures. And then the estimated costs of such a program, if we were to implement it, there is a FLES consultant available through Hsdsb that could work with us if the board decides to pursue a FLES program. And Dillard and I did have an opportunity to talk to this consultant, and the recommendation of the consultant is to begin the program in kindergarten and then add that additional grade level every subsequent year. So by year 5, every grade level at Central School would have approximately 90 minutes of Spanish instruction a week. And that consultant would help us, would write the curriculum for our FLES program, and that curriculum for FLES would support our Central School English Language Arts, Science, Math, Social Studies, and Unified Arts curricula. The consultant would provide training to both the FLES teachers, and grade level teachers. The FLES consultant could bring some of our teachers over to Timberlane District because they do have a FLES program, and they've had it for several years. The consultant would also mentor the FLES teacher and monitor the program, evaluate the program for us, and definitely provide some informational sessions for parents and staff and the community, and also perhaps be involved in the hiring of a FLES teacher. So in the first year, would be the setup year, and that's why it's a little more costly. There would be about $2,000 for the program materials. It's a kit produced by the McGraw-Hill Company that can be used for several years at different grade levels. And as we extend the program yearly to another grade level, we eventually would be increasing the number of teachers that we would need. So that's a brief overview of what a FLES program could look like at an elementary level, and what questions do you have for us?
So the cost that I see here for a Hsdsb consultant and the program, if we move forward with this, then there would also be the FLES teacher.
Correct.
And that teacher would cover the entire Central School, is that correct?
For the first year, it would be a half-time teacher 3 times a week in kindergarten classrooms. And then the second year, we would increase the time of that teacher to 0.75, and that teacher would work 3 times a week in each first grade classroom, and then be full-time the third year, because the teacher would also then be working 3 times a week in each second grade classroom. And then as we add third grade and fourth grade, we would need 1.25 teacher and a 1.5 teacher. So
it's 5 years to roll out?
If we
the
were
whole
to,
school?
yes, for Central School, if we were to go with this model. And this is a model that was recommended by the Hsdsb consultant that we met with.
So then, at year 6, would it merge into the current program that we have in place? I mean, who knows what's going to happen with the program in 6 years, but
Right.
would it be like I don't understand what would happen with 6
Well, this is what Timberlane is looking at now, because they're ready to they're looking at what the program would look like at their middle school. So they, and I'm just speaking from their experience, that they might develop 2 tracks for their Spanish program. A track for students who haven't had a lot of the FLES participation, and then a track for students who have had several years of FLES.
Okay. So this would be a separate grade for the kids on their report cards?
Not necessarily. I know from the Timberlane experience, they have an informal assessment for the students at the younger grade levels. They do have a foreign language test that's administered in 3rd grade. And maybe, Dr. Wilson, you have a better idea as to the grading at Timberlane?
I'm not sure how they do it.
So we can ask that question.
Okay.
I want to be clear on the term rollout. Say this started next year, and the kindergartner class got it. It's going to start in kindergarten, but it's also going to be given to 1st grade?
That would be the following year.
If you're on the wrong side of it, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
It's the same rollout we did for the Chromebooks.
Yeah.
Yes.
It follows that grade as they progress.
Yes.
And by the time they get through the school, it's at all the grade levels.
Yeah. It builds upon itself.
And that's a good thing? I'm asking. I mean, it seems like, why can't it be done
I think it gives,
simultaneously in all across the grades?
I think it's a significant change in addition, because you are adding in the teachers, the classroom teachers needing training on it. So to me, this makes sense because you're giving everyone the chance to kind of build up to it. I mean, it's a pretty significant program to just bring in for everybody all at once, although it would benefit all of them. It would certainly benefit all of them, but.
Is that an option they talked about?
I'm sorry?
Starting it across the school at the same time?
That would,
Just wondering.
I would think that would be very difficult. As far as curriculum writing, there would be I just foresee issues.
Because the 4th graders aren't, maybe not building on anything.
Right.
You have to do something special for them.
So they're basically going to have a very similar curriculum, 1st grade, kindergarten, 1st grade, and 4th grade, because they have to learn colors and numbers and names and seasons and science words and math words and, their numbers in Spanish. And
It's just if you're on the other side of that curve, it's behind you, and it would be great if you could get on it, but I guess it's not the way it's meant to roll out.
Because if I understand this, the whole benefit of this type of foreign language is that, as Mrs. Bucco talked about, you're teaching the kids the numbers, and at the same time you're teaching them the Spanish version or whatever. So I see what you're saying. If you're trying to roll it out to a 3rd grader who's not learning their numbers, they're learning multiplication or something. You can't use the same curriculum.
Right.
And that's a pretty major overhaul of curriculum overall, if you're trying to bring that in for every grade level.
Right, because we really want this Spanish curriculum to align with our current grade level curriculum.
Right. It makes it more natural for them.
Yes,
It
more
makes
natural,
it-
yes.
Right, right. Okay.
So they couldn't just learn the vocabulary that the 3rd graders are learning at that time?
Well, I think it's the whole, yeah, but they won't have that beginning piece to start with. The same reason we start with teaching the numbers and then the letters and the sounds as they go to teach them reading. You're kind of naturally teaching the kindergartners to automatically make those associations in the brain, whereas it's almost like you're jumping steps.
Yeah, it's like the building blocks to learning a language. And so when we're teaching our babies at home how to speak English, we start with basic things. And then when you are teaching a teenager how to speak a foreign language, you really do start with the 1st grade level language and its basic building blocks. So what you would be suggesting would be to find the time in the day to start that basic foundation of learning a foreign language in all of the grades at the same time, and I think that would probably exasperate our current programs. So
Yes.
Yeah,
It's the same reason why in middle school, Spanish is a separate
UA.
UA, because they have to start from that. So I would envision that being the same type of thing. You'd have to try to find time in the school day, which we all know is squished as it is, to get everything in that they're needing to get in. It'd be like adding another UA
So
to some
So
extent.
if this starts, say this starts next year, the only kids that are going to benefit are the kids that are going to be in kindergarten next year. The kids that are already in first, second, third, and fourth don't get any Spanish.
Right. And then all of the children that come behind them. But the kids that are ahead of that curve would still continue to receive Spanish learning instruction at the middle school level that we have already done, always done. And that, I think that does start in 5th grade, right?
Yes, fifth
Yeah.
grade.
Yeah.
In UA.
A separate class, that would be a different story.
Which even
Do whatever,
5th grade
because-
is still, I mean, for those children that haven't had the FLES program, 5th grade is still relatively early. I mean, there's still some schools that don't do this until high school. So, but as far as we just finished budget talks. Now we're talking about more contracts and more teachers and more curriculum. And I understand that, a lot of our teachers already feel stressed out with all of the curriculum that they are administering at this point in time. So I kind of feel like this is more than just a board decision. Are we expected to make a decision on this tonight, or is this just informational?
No, this is informational.
All right. So what are your next steps? Whatever we tell you?
Whatever.
I'm really interested to find out what...
You can observe.
Hmm?
You can observe this one in one of the Timberlane schools if people want to go further with this. We wanted to present it to you because if we are going to do anything next year, we have to get into the budget.
Yeah.
So that's why we brought it to you to kind of understand. You can, if there's more that you want, some questions answered, we can go back and get some of that, answered.
I guess what I'm not understanding really, because it's kind of a disconnect, because when you were talking about it, it sounded like Sesame Street, where, 1, 2, 3, uno, dos, tres. But then you show me this, and it looks like it's a separate teacher coming in, plus a consultant. So,
Yes.
So the consultant is for the purpose of training teachers and writing a curriculum.
Writing the curriculum.
And the separate teacher is to stand there next to the teacher and say whatever she says in Spanish?
No, there is a FLES curriculum. I happen to have a copy of the kindergarten FLES curriculum from Timberlane. It's a class, and the students are, it runs, I would say, parallel to our kindergarten curriculum.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, for example, the math concepts. So the students are learning it in English from their kindergarten teacher, and then our FLES teacher comes into the classroom to reinforce those same concepts in Spanish.
That's the
And so
30
there's a lot
minutes.
of communication
30
between.
minutes, 3 times a
Student
week?
teaching, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And that's your FLES teacher that you have to hire. It has to be someone certified in Spanish. They're
And-
not always that easy to find, but again, that's part of what we've done in Timberlane with 5 different schools. And we have built this across the 5 years. So, and it is very integrated to what goes on in the classroom, which is, I think, that's why this is different. This is different than what you would normally think of in middle school. But it does mean, as we go through this, if you're going to go through this for the next 5 years, we will have to reimagine how it's going to impact the middle school. So we're going to have to do some investigating and have some conversations, just like Timberlane is right now, with their middle school program, because these kids are coming in with much more proficiency than they're used to.
Well, I think that, I'm hearing what everybody's saying, and I think that it goes back to what our original goal was, though, and looking at this. Yes, it's going to be a learning curve for everybody, yet we're going to have to figure out how to do this. But for me, the bigger vision is, we live in a global world. Spanish is spoken all over. It's been proven, even in here, that kids learn a foreign language much easier at a younger age than waiting to high school or even middle school. So for my point of view is that this is something that we need to do. I think we need to go forward with it. I think we need to work out the bugs maybe as we go along. But I'm certainly not ready to say, forget it, I don't want to do this next year, because it may not be exactly as any one of us had envisioned. I think it's something that will best serve the interests of the kids in Hampstead. I think it's something they need to have.
I would agree. When we did our strategic plan a number of years back, this is something we talked about. We talked about the global economy. We talked about students, the students in elementary school entering into a workforce where it's multicultural, multilingual, and again, we're trying to predict the future for these kids when they're going to have jobs that we can't even imagine, but to the best that we can to try to prepare them for that global economy that they're entering. And the foreign language program was specifically discussed as this is it's no longer a nice to have when you're working across cultures. We viewed it as an imperative. So it certainly is part of the strategic plan.
So as far as Pinkerton goes, I mean, yes, we're going to have to figure it out when the kids get to middle school, what our foreign language will look like in middle school, and then are they going to continue with it at Pinkerton, or at some point are we just going to say they're fluent? Like, are we going to try to get them to fluency before they get to Pinkerton? What are we doing?
That's way.
Yeah, I know, but it's obviously it's a long-term investment.
Yeah, it is.
So I think it really should. We should get more input from the community to make sure that the community does want this.
I would say on the Pinkerton side, though, I mean, we have generally had high placement rates for the more advanced Spanish courses as our kids have gone into to Pinkerton. And Emma, I don't know if you took Spanish. I don't know if you take Spanish at Pinkerton and what your experience is, but we've typically seen Hampstead students perform well on that, and I think that would be the expectation, is that we would place even more in the advanced Spanish course. Now, obviously, when the kids get to Pinkerton, they don't have to take it. They could elect to do something else. But if we've gotten them to a higher level of proficiency, then we would continue to place our students in the more advanced classes.
And they do have that opportunity if I'm going to let Emma correct me if I'm wrong, but you can have an 8th grader going into a freshman year who can, I believe, go to level 2. Yeah. So if they are that proficient when they are, if they've gone up through this program, I don't think it's a question of whether Pinkerton could handle that, because they have that in place already. They could just bump them up another level.
Well, that's with our children or our students having minimal Spanish instruction at the middle school for 2 years. So what we're talking about is having them have Spanish instruction for 8 years prior to sending them to Pinkerton. And yes, we're preparing them for a workforce with jobs that we don't know of that yet, but we still know that there's probably going to be a need for carpenters and for bus drivers and for garbage men. I mean, it's not, learning dual language is very important. There are job opportunities available that are only open to bilingual people. And yes, it gives them more opportunity, and we're all about giving the students more opportunity. I just, like I said, I've said my piece. I don't know.
I'm not even looking at this as far down the road as for jobs, even. This is basic general exposure, so that our students are exposed to another language. English isn't the only language just because everyone else in the world speaks it. And I think it's really important that kids at a young age are exposed to another language. Whether they're graded on it or not even, doesn't matter to me, personally. I think kids benefit from learning a language at a younger age. And Emma, you're shaking your head yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I have a question. I'm sorry, go ahead. If you were not finished.
I was just, the Spanish exchange students that came over, they could speak 4 languages, which is very impressive because they start at such a young age. And I think that this would benefit the students so greatly because it has far more benefits than just learning a new language, because it deals with different parts of the mind that mathematics and writing doesn't.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty sad that most countries speak many languages. and most people in this country do not. My question was,
English very well either.
are kids going to possibly get exposed to other languages? The basic letters and numbers, just to hear the different sounds or learn different things. I'm just wondering, is that part of any of these curriculums at all? Is it
As far
always
as the FLES,
Spanish?
my experience in talking to Timberlane, it's focusing on just one language.
Okay. I don't mean they should get as fluent in all languages, not even fluent, but learn everything. But hear the different languages,
Exposed to it.
1 to 10, maybe in German or some other language. I was just wondering. But my perspective, when I was in kindergarten, I learned letters, numbers, colors, and something else. And I remember that all the way until I was a freshman in high school. That was my next opportunity to learn Spanish. What a waste of time. I could have learned so much more. And for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, sign us up. Give us the numbers, see if we can put it in the budget.
See, I know that the math centers of the brain also are activated through learning musical instruments, and then they can cultivate their fine motor skills, and they also learn some stress relief. So if we're talking about the whole child, I personally, obviously, we're not all on the same page on this one, but I would think that there would be more value in a music program.
Well, we have a music program. We have chorus,
Like a
we have
musical
band.
instrument program starting at a younger age, where they're exposed to at a younger age. I just think it would have more value. That's just my personal opinion.
Could that be another goal for next year? Right now, this is what's in our
But
goals.
we just finished the budget.
That's why we're...
No, we didn't finish the budget.
We didn't finish the budget.
Got the distracted.
We didn't finish the budget,
I
and
mean, let's do it all. I'd love to do it all. Don't get me wrong. I'm just, like I said, I know that it's probably going to be another point of stress for teachers who often feel overburdened as it is. And I know it's next year's kindergartners. I'm sure that the kids would probably respond really well to the program. It seems minimally invasive and something that they would be easily adapted to. You know, as far as the parents go, I don't know.
okay, so we're at the point now we need to give some direction. I guess the only way we're going to do this is to take a vote. We're going to vote. We're going to take a vote to see whether or not we're going to move forward with the FLES program. That's all we can do. Okay? Very simple.
So what's the motion?
I move that we move forward with the FLES program, with the development of the FLES program, to try and put it in place for next year.
I'll second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? 4-1. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Doris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll have more information to share in an upcoming meeting, I'm sure. Thank you. Thank you, Doris.
Okay.
And
Or
if you are,
stay there.
Yes, I can stay here.
if you are interested, you know, we can do an observation right down the street.
Yes, right down the street. Okay, on to tripod. The Tripod Student Perception Survey. So I'm here tonight in follow-up to April's school board presentation. Last April, Christy Michaud from Timberlane came over and she and I did a presentation, a preview of the Tripod survey. So tonight I'd like to briefly review some components of the survey and focus primarily on how we're going to go about administering the survey to grades 1 through 8 in December. So first of all, why are we asking students to participate in this academic survey? Well, we do have our strategic plan goal C of promoting a positive school culture, utilizing innovative changes that respond to our students and staff's immediate and future needs. And one of those sub-goals is for us to research and to select a way to measure the school's positive culture and climate. And through research and all, we selected the tripod survey. And I want to stress that it's an academic student voice survey. And students are an important source of information for us on quality teaching and the learning environments that promote higher levels of learning. So this survey was developed, organized around the 7 C's of effective teaching: care, clarify, challenge, captivate, confer, consolidate, and classroom management. And in a few minutes, I'll highlight 3 of these particular C's of effective teaching. And these 7 C's are best practices that research links to student achievement, engagement, and motivation. So the results of this survey will assist both administrators and teachers in several ways. Teachers will get feedback from their students, anonymous feedback from their students, and can identify strengths and areas of growth for their goal setting that they do every year as part of our teacher evaluation process. At the school level, the principals will get information of school-wide results to set priorities, some goals for professional development and support. And at the school level, we can also identify patterns and trends over the next couple of years that may be affecting our student achievement. So looking at the administration of this survey, it takes about 30 minutes, and it's completely anonymous. There's no student information that is shared with Tripod at any time. We're looking to administer this survey the week of December 3rd. And at the middle school, we'll pick a particular period of the day, likewise at Central School. So for example, we'll pick second period. At that particular period, I think our 6th graders are at Unified Arts. So the 6th graders would take the survey in their Unified Arts class, and the other 3 grade levels would take it in the math, English, science, social studies, whatever class they happen to be in second period. Third period, that 6th grade class would take it again in their core class, whether it's math, English, science, social studies. So at each grade, at each school, there'd be 1 grade that would take it twice. They would take it in one Unified Arts class and in the regular core classroom. And in Central School would be there, with their regular
Doris,
classroom too.
Can you just explain what does it mean taking it twice? They're responding to questions about the teacher
In front of them.
So
Yes.
they're going to be responding to questions about their Unified Arts teacher, and then they're going to come back and they're going to respond to the same questions about their classroom teacher.
Yes.
That's the only class that's doing it twice.
Right. Yes. And there's developmentally appropriate questions for early, upper elementary and middle school levels. Early would be, for our particular district, K and 1, first and second. Upper would be 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And middle school would be 6th through 8th. We can have our 5th graders take the 6th and 7th, 8th, 6th through 8th grade survey. And that was actually a recommendation from the company when I spoke with them today. And I wanted to give you a few examples of these types of questions. At the early elementary levels, grades 1 and 2, the students would be one of the survey questions would be, my teacher is very good at explaining things. And that falls under the category of clarify, one of the 7 C's. My teacher makes us explain our answers, why we think what we are thinking, and that falls under the challenge, 7C. At the upper elementary level, for 3 through 5, my teacher in this class makes me feel that he or she really cares about me. That falls under the category of care. My teacher takes time to help us remember what we learned. That would be the 7C, consolidate. At the secondary level, my teacher makes learning enjoyable. That falls under the category of captivate. Our class stays busy and does not waste time. That falls under the 7C of classroom management. Now, there are also some demographic questions that the students would answer. And these questions are important and necessary to provide nationally normed results and comparisons to students nationally that answer the demographic questions similarly. And I have some examples for you. And at the first and second grade level, there would be 8 demographic questions. Third through fifth grade, there would be 12 demographic questions. And sixth through eighth grade, there are 15 demographic questions. So I have some examples for you. I feel they're non-threatening, benign type of questions. So those are our samples. And then I'll just highlight 3 of the 7 C's. So as I mentioned previously, this survey is focusing around the 7 C's of effective teaching, which is a set of best practices that research has linked to student achievement, engagement, and motivation. So under the category of care, a sample survey question would be, my teacher is courteous, respectful, and fair with all students. My teacher is consistently concerned about meeting students' social, emotional, and academic needs. My teacher makes me feel that he cares about me. Classroom management, in this category, sample items on the survey may include everyone knows what they should be doing in class, the materials are readily accessible, time is used appropriately, and disruptions are managed effectively. And looking at clarify, sample items include, my teacher has expertise in explaining key concepts. The teacher models success by providing examples and rubrics. And then I did include in the PowerPoint the other 7 C's as well, with some examples. But I'm going to jump ahead to here, to this page. So results. So upon completion of the survey, teachers immediately received their individual results. And individual teacher results by name are not shared with the evaluators or principals. This would be a sample report that a principal may receive. This shows for the 7 C's. And we can look to see where we're above average, midpoint average, and below average. And the principals would also receive teacher results, but not associated with a teacher name. So a teacher is assigned a number. For example, one teacher is 0586, another teacher has another number. There's no names associated with the results that the teacher receives. No student names are associated with those results, and no teacher names are associated with the results that the principals receive. So what are we going to do with these results? We're going to use these results to identify areas that we need to improve, and we're focusing on those 7 C's. We can use the results to develop our goals for next year's school action plans. We will encourage teachers to talk about teaching strategies and effective practices at their PLC meetings, and teachers definitely can set personal goals based on their individual results. And because the survey, teachers get the survey results immediately, they could be making any changes that they wish to make for the rest of the school year. And then we'll also use the tripod with instructional rounds, and we have done instructional rounds in the district. We did instructional rounds in 2015-16 and then 16-17. So we're familiar with doing instructional rounds, and we'll use the tripod survey results to identify a problem of practice, one of those 7 C's. And then we would have a team of staff members and administrators visit classroom to look for school-wide trends and patterns focused on the 7 C areas. And then this instructional rounds team would then give recommendations for next steps for our schools. And as far as next steps, we were able to reduce the cost of the survey because we're doing all grade levels online. It's an online survey, about 30 minutes, so it did reduce the cost. What we're doing now at our admin team meetings this week at both buildings, we're sharing all this information with teachers. We gave them some information in August at the opening of school, but we now are actually going to share this PowerPoint with them. We're going to share with them an example of what a teacher report looks like. And then hopefully by the end of this week, early next week, we'll have our information ready for parents to share with parents. And then the week before the survey is administered, we'll be talking to students about what this is all about. And then we'll provide some guidance to teachers on how to analyze their results, how they can use the results to make adjustments in their teaching practices, and then schedule our instructional rounds for February. And if any parent wants to see any of the sample questions or the demographic questions, they can certainly contact me or any of the principals, and we would be glad to sit down with parents and show them these questions. So do you have any?
This is going to start December 3rd, the week of December 3rd?
Yes, we're at Central School, we're looking particularly at Thursday, December 6th. And then we have to pick a date for middle school. But we want to look at that time period before Christmas vacation. And we don't have any major concerts that week, so it's a good week for us to do this survey.
Okay.
All multiple choice, is there opportunity for the older kids to write?
No, there's no handwritten responses.
Is the boy or girl question?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the only two choices are going to be offered?
Yes, and at the upper level, they use the terms male and female. And
Is that appropriate?
If a child feels uncomfortable answering a question, they can certainly skip answering a question.
But what if they want to answer it another way?
I don't think there's a way for them to handwrite a response. This is all computerized. So they could skip the question if they feel uncomfortable answering the question.
Okay, now I think I refresh my memory. Is this survey something that a parent can opt out of completely if they want to?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
And they would just have to contact a building
Just
principal.
contact the principal and
Yes.
say, my child's going to opt out
Yes.
of the tripod survey.
They can.
No questions asked.
No.
Everybody hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doris?
Mr. Collins, your action plan and school goals, please.
You guys are really digging in the weeds tonight. This is great. Having a good meeting. A lot of hard work. So I'm pleased to report that we've been working on our school goals, and there are actually 4 goals that are right in the center of our school action plan. This is actually a 2-year plan. We're right now just a little bit over halfway through the plan because we started working, this is the beginning of the 2017-18 school year. Of course, we're now just finishing our first quarter of this year. So if you go through this, you can see these are the 4 goals. There's one that's about language arts instruction and math instruction, a very important one about instruction. Social emotional learning, and particularly mindset, is a big point of emphasis here. Now we have school safety, which we've all been working. And then the last one is student digital communication. I'm actually here to happily report that we've got a lot of this stuff done and actually stepped beyond the bounds of some of these goals. So I'm just going to give you some of the evidence about where we are at this point in time. So if we start off with the first goal, as you know, there's some key words here I just want to point out. Journeys and Envision Math are 2 major programs we use at our school. Journeys being the language arts program, and Envision Math, of course, is our math program. Letters is language essentials of teachers of reading and spelling, which is a very important professional development we've done over many, many years, which we're also planning on continuing for many years out. And then there's a couple of the assessment tools that we use, Dibbles and iReady, which are ways that we sort of measure our students' progress. And then the last one we work on is the things we've talked a lot about with performance assessments. If you want to talk about some of the progress of where we are, we've done a lot of work with our spelling strategy. We've actually moved some of our programs around, adopted some programs. Some of this actually came out of work on letters with Carol Tolman, Dr. Tolman, and you see our spelling program has evolved and improved significantly. We're now using some of the tools out of our Journeys program to work on the comprehension element and trying to figure out how our students are doing at that next level of learning. in reading. We're happy to report that Journeys is now fully implemented. It usually takes quite a few years to implement a program of that magnitude. Accessibility of the letters, professional development. For the first few years that we did this, we brought in Dr. Carol Tolman, who was one of the secondary authors of the whole program, working with Louisa Motes. We've actually sent 2 of our staff members off to become trainers of teachers, so they can actually run the training in-house. And in fact, this week, our reading specialist, Mrs. Nolan's off for a second flight of training, so she can actually train this. The way it's structured is built around a series of modules. So we have 2 staff members, Trish Harnois, a speech pathologist, as well as Sheila Nolan, that can run our staff through the first 3 modules, and now Mrs. Nolan is going to carry a few more modules forward. So this will allow us to do some of the training in-house, which is quite a bit more flexible for us, cost-effective as well. Some of the things that we did within our math instruction, we reorganized some of the math units as part of our professional learning community work, just to find ones that fit some of the assessments, some of the tools, some of the standards, and this is good teaching practice. We've actually gone in and said, are we following the protocols? We adjusted a couple of little protocols fitting, of course, with the protocols that are given by iReady. And we expect also to continue with this hard work on the performance assessments. It seems like every other PD day, they're burrowing in a new layer of validation or implementation, reading assessments. So we've made a great deal of progress here. The second goal is to talk about all of this conversation about taking care of the social emotional needs of our students, and a very big important one is to start with mindset. Do we all have the right mindset? A lot of people have read Carol Dweck's book, and there's a lot of stuff that has subsequently followed in the education world. So we want to look for the mindset strategies and vocabulary into our daily routines and demonstrate it at least once a quarter. Well, we've really done quite a bit more than that. Some of the evidence, first of all, we wanted to look at a program that we could use for students to talk about globally, talking about social emotional learning. The Second Step program is a program we've looked at after a couple of years, some work that went back with Jennifer Marino a few years ago, leading us to mindset and social emotional learning. The Second Step program is a great program. It was presented to students with our school counselor last year. It's continuing this year, and we've got some more plans in the future. You'll probably see this in a future goal at the central school. Mindset strategies, they're all over the school. Virtually every classroom, there's a mindset wall. You walk down the hallway, there's something going on. You've probably signed off on thousands of dollars on coursework that our teachers have done on mindset, because there's a great work out there to get this into education. You will also see it's really become a staple of our schools. So in other words, I think we've moved forward in a very nice way. Moving forward, school safety, this board here has been very proactive, along with some of the work that we've been doing in-house. So if you want to look at what we're doing, we've been reviewing, revising, and all of our safety plans, which means all of our drills look different now. Some names are there that look different. And we've also got some measures of achievement that, we've got some of these things done. As you know, we've trained a lot of our people in incident command systems. This comes right out of that FEMA planning. We've worked with some of the state level people as well. Safety training has happened for our substitutes, our paraeducators, our teaching staff. We have coordinated our work across the state with a emergency operations plan. Yes, that's that 100-plus page document that I know the board has seen some pieces of that. We aligned our drills to go along with New Hampshire Homeland Security's recommendations. They've been on site a couple of times at our school. The security routines have improved tremendously at the school. And the physical safety, I can report that physically it's a much safer school. You'll never create a perfectly safe school, but is much improved. And I think it's because of everything from all of the physical plant stuff we've done to all of the internal systems. And the last one is to look ahead to the student digital communication. This is the way students communicate this day, and this is the way they're going to be communicating their education throughout their future. Some of this goes back to the New Hampshire College and Career Ready Standards, and also the International Society of Tech Ed. That is a group that's also a guiding group that has sort of changed some of the ways we do this business. We've actually trained our staff on what these Hsdsb standards are about, particularly one on creative communicator standards. We actually have a rubric that we're using in 3rd and 4th grade to see how students are achieving these actual standards. There's a lot more resources available to staff in the media world that they could use. E-portfolios is now becoming a staple of learning at our school. Students are now using, starting to implement these little portfolio pieces, and we're actually looking at better ways to make that more efficient in the future. And we have a technology integrator this year, again, that's continuing working right into 3rd and 4th grade classrooms. So technology learning is not just about what happens in the lab, but is what happens across the whole curriculum. I tried to do that quickly in the interest of time. So if I just zipped a little bit quick and you want to go back and ask questions, I'm very much open to questions or willing to sit down.
You have next steps. You have one more next step.
Oh, there is one more slide? Oh.
One more.
Okay, next steps. Letters training this year and beyond. That'll be, the work of Sheila and Trish Harnwell, working with all of our newer staff and making sure that the others that have done this over the years were there. We do plan on doing more with Second Step down the pike. And there is more work that's happening on safety improvement within our school. And then the last one is the e-portfolios. We're just going to continue to populate that with the students' work. So over a long period of time, the students will have a great resource for what they've grown over the years.
It's an extensive amount of work in a short period of time. Thank you.
A lot of people involved,
Yeah.
Yes.
including you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, you.
Nice job, Mr. Collins.
Because it was quick, this is good.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay, policies, second read. Second read, so we've already seen them all. I think we've gone through them. They've been back to the policy committee. Last time, our representative, Kathleen, said there was nothing really red flagged about these. For the record, they are 7 policies: CBG, Superintendent's Development Opportunities; CC, Assistant Superintendents of Schools; GCH, Professional Staff Orientation; IHAE, Physical Education; IHAMB, Teaching About Self-Protection; IHBBA, Limited English Proficiency Instructions; and lastly, GCR, Non-School Employment by Professional Staff Members. Anybody have any comments on these? Looking at them a second time. If not, I will accept a motion to accept all 7 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on these? If not, I'll take a vote. It's unanimous. They've been adopted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board comments and correspondence, if any.
Board comments. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the 7th grade STEAM food truck festival, I guess you would call it. It was amazing. Everybody in the room was enthusiastic. All the customers, the food reviewers from the 6th grade. It was really an amazing project, and I got the opportunity to talk to a couple of different UA teachers while I was there, and it was amazing. Yay, more of that. That was great. Sports award night, I attended, and I tried to take a decent picture of Maria holding all of her new trophies, hardware, if that's what you want to call it. She was struggling to walk across with carrying all of it. Definitely a classy bunch of people, including all of the volunteers, the coaches, and the students, athletes themselves. I got a really good report from a 4th grader who went to Concord today and got to see a musket and a ripped up flag that was in a war. And maybe met somebody that she can't remember who. And looking forward to the immigration simulation at the Central School as well. Going through the vouchers at the SAU for the Hsd School District. I've come across a lot of professional development and tuition reimbursement, and I just wanted to give kudos to everybody who's driving that work, and I'm thrilled that we have such an educated workforce that's so dedicated to improving the education and the lives of our children. There was one that stood out that I'm probably going to ask Maria about later. For the middle school, there's 3 of you going, and it is a climate, UNH. That one looks really interesting. Yes, the social emotional climate of middle school. So, yeah, but there's really, there's too many to list. That our teachers are doing some amazing things, between dyslexia workshops at Harvard to everything. We're very fortunate. That's all I got.
I'm good.
Jason?
I'm all set.
I just have a comment. I just want to piggyback on what Kathleen said. I said sometimes we forget to thank those that are in the trenches daily. And tonight's been a perfect example of all the work that's being done. Not really behind the scenes, but behind the scenes. It's not being done in front of the board or in front of the public on a daily basis. So I would like to take this time to sincerely thank our staff and our administrators for all the hard work that they've been doing, that they continually do, especially this year, because I know there have been a lot of changes. Some of those changes are the cause of this board asking to implement new practices and policies. So I want to say I really thank everybody for rolling up their sleeves and working together to get it done. Thank you. Consent agenda, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, and I'm happy to report that we don't have a personnel report, so we have had no resignations. And for my report, I don't have a lot. Obviously, for the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of really involved in the budget. So I don't have a lot to share. Been in and out of the schools for my weekly meetings and more meetings as well. And kudos to the administrative team for some of the work that they've done in terms of the goals that you see today in the presentations that we put together for you. And just the finance documents that are going around to make sure that you did receive the financial manifests. I don't know where they lay.
I think they're all done. They're right here.
Okay.
They've been signed by everyone.
So that's all I have.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as
So moved.
presented?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, thank you very much. Other business. We have some other business tonight. I'd like to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion for a professional resolution. I'd like to read it in full. At the end, I would like a second, please, and then move directly to a vote. Motion. I move that the board adopt the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Hsd School Board, as the governing body of the Hsd School District, hereby rejects and disapproves of the inappropriate and unprofessional conduct and commentary engaged in by members of the Timberlane Regional School Board with regard to representatives of the Hsd School District and the SAU 55 administrators. Specifically, Dr. Earl Metzler, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Thomas Gary, Business Operations Coordinator, and Mr. Jeffrey Dowd, CFO, Business Administrator. Time and time again, members of the Timberlane Regional School Board have demonstrated a lack of respect for fellow SAU board members and SAU employees. With regard to SAU employees and administrators, their propensity for nitpicking and criticizing the work of the SAU employees has continuously obstructed and delayed the work of the SAU. In matters of civility, whether toward fellow SAU board members or SAU employees, they have demonstrated a deficit of common decency, disrespectful civil discourse, and a failure to treat others with dignity. In conduct, their inability and unwillingness to follow Robert's Rules of Order, or for that matter, any other consistent process. Their repeated endeavors to hijack board meetings by ignoring previously recorded votes by the majority of the SAU board and their flagrant disregard for the SAU's Code of Ethics, as evidenced by their refusal to endorse the document, is what has necessitated the Hampstead School Board passing this resolution. Let this statement serve as clarification to all concerned that the members of the Hampstead School Board do not agree with, nor do they condone the behavior of the Timberlane Regional School Board.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We do now have a non-public, RSA 91A32 under L.
So move.
So moved. Oh,
Second.
second. All in favor? Oh, you have to do a roll call.
Let's borrow a microphone.
Mrs. Abrazizi?
Yes.
Mr. Cipriano?
Yes.
Mrs. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
And Mrs. Yusenka?
Yes.
Thank
and Cable, you may go home. There will be no decisions made. Ms. Johnston, you may go home, and Melissa Post, you may also leave.